You're watching my second out of 5 matches at the 2023 World Master Championship.
It's like a world championship, but for old people.
Where I ended up with 2nd place, submitting my first 4 opponents and losing in the final to an ankle lock. And here's my medal. Just kidding. My first match went by pretty quickly.
See you later. Hey, there you go, buddy. That was quick.
This is my 2nd Master Worlds in the Master 1 Blue Belt Featherweight division, and up until this point, I'd done 52 tournaments and 202 matches at Blue Belt, ranking me #1 IBJJF Master 1 Lightweight Blue Belt in the world. It ain't much, but it's something. I've only competed in featherweight a few times, and this time I did a cut over several weeks to lose over 10 pounds to compete in this 37-man division, which leads us to this match that you're about to watch against Michael Martinez. My strategy going into this match was the same for all of them. Stick with my A game, which is single leg X to a butterfly Ashi ankle lock, and if that wasn't working, sweep them, force half guard, and pass from there for a submission from top position. So basically, do jujitsu. As we'll see in this match, unlike my first match, my ankle lock failed this time and I was forced to pass the guard just as I had planned for in training. When the match starts, my opponent is circling and initially denies me my grip, so I'm forced to feint so I can enter into single leg X. The opponent kneels as expected, just like my first opponent, and I get a pant grip on his knee, just like I did in my first match. As I begin to switch my outside leg to a butterfly Ashi hook, my opponent reacts differently than my first opponent. In the first match, the opponent tried to backstep out, but this time my opponent tries to push my inside knee through as if going to mount, but steps all the way over my body as I keep tight hooks. He actually manages to completely free his right leg, and I'm forced to take a scoop grip from behind his body in order to maintain 4 points of connection. As Danaher would say, you don't have a guard unless you have 4 points of connection. I think he said that, I don't know.
If I can create 4 strong points of connection, it's going to be very difficult to pass my guard.
As he goes down to both hands, I invert and keep control of his pant legs. Since my scoop grip is behind his right leg, I'm not in a good position to ankle lock, so I need to change plans and look to come up for a sweep. As I attempt to reverse positions, I let go with my left hand to post as I hip heist, which means I only have a pant grip with my right hand, but as I drive forward, I scoop under the same leg with my left arm and land on top. I'm in danger right now of being off balance towards my head, and we can hear one of my coaches, Hoffa, yelling at me to shift my weight back towards my butt since my hips are too high in the air right now, putting me at risk of toppling forward. My opponent is almost in a sort of ankle lock grip reverse X guard type situation and has a lot of transition options from here, and I just feel all tangled up and this is weird and I want to go home. Just kidding. He pushes on my shin and extends me, and I backstep into what almost amounts to reverse half guard. Hoffa tells me to step over my opponent's leg to go to mount, but I don't have an underhook with my right arm in time for a knee slide, and I leave a lot of space under my left leg as I step out, so I essentially step right into my opponent's deep half guard. I do manage to scoop an underhook on the top arm though, which in theory gives me a Kimura and back take options, but I'm struggling to free my left leg as my opponent rolls to his left to come on top to wrestle up. We end up in the dogfight position, and I'm hip heisting because here I'm getting ready to sumigeishi if we stand up, but as I stand up and rotate my hips a bit with my belt grip, this pressures into my opponent a bit and he rotates back down into deep half. I'm not loaded on top of him though, and he leaves enough space for me to dig an underhook with my left arm, get a crossface, and start knee sliding from the 3/4 side position. For the past few months, I've been intensely studying the Danaher half guard passing system and implementing it in competition in order to prepare for Master Worlds, so top half guard is a position I'm pretty comfortable in. Since I'm in the 3/4 side position, it should only be a matter of time before I can pass. The main things I'm thinking about right now are freeing my foot. This is #1 thing that I need in order to secure the pass. Being patient and not rushing the pass. Several different options of upper body and lower body configurations with options to switch between them if needed. And making sure my opponent can't off balance me to either side. If I can stay tight and focused here, I know I can get the 3 points as I move to a dominant pinning position. Let's switch angles for a moment to the IBJJF score table camera so we can see what I'm doing with my upper body. I initially start with the most traditional upper body configuration, a crossface and underhook. I try to kick his thighs to release my foot, but that doesn't work. I changed strategies and switched to my favorite upper body configuration in the 3/4 side position, the head block method, where I trap the opponent's head between my head and a far side underhook, and I post out with my right hand, which can also be used to either dig a near side underhook, pull up on his tricep, or post on his leg. I first begin by trying to lift his tricep since he's framing on my lower body. I try momentarily to kick out, but don't have adequate control, and my foot is trapped by his super hook. My brown belt training partner, Matt Guffey, is telepathically asking me to move my left knee parallel with the opponent's ribs and circle my foot to beat the super hook.
Josh, yeah, knee in, circle your foot.
which is something we drilled before. But I'm actually getting a really bad cramp in my left hip, which I would feel pretty intensely after this match was over.
Sound like a straight. Now listen to that mother.
I momentarily finger walk to dig a near side underhook as well, but my opponent denies me that. At this point, I do have control of his left arm, but I'm still unable to free my foot. I switch between pushing on the top thigh and bottom thigh, and then post out with my foot again. My opponent turns hard into me, and I need to pin his shoulder blades again, or else I might lose the position. So I switch back to a crossface and underhook as he reaches for a pant grip, and you can hear Hoffa saying to make sure he doesn't get that pant grip. I'm able to pin his shoulder blades again with a heavy crossface as I move more perpendicular to his body, and he releases the pant grip with his left hand to frame on my hips in order to relieve some of the pressure. I start to dig a near side underhook as I switch my head to a head block again, and I move my right foot even further up towards his shoulder line. This motion of putting myself more perpendicular to his body is causing him to release some pressure on my foot, so I'm finally able to kick out. But he's a savvy opponent, so he times my kick with a bridge in order to try to roll me over my left shoulder. As I feel him bridge, I try to keep my hips heavy, and I post out with my right hand far in front of me on the mat, keeping tension in my body and my head low to his torso, almost like an additional hook with my chin. And I switch my right arm to a lapel nape grip, which acts as a crossface. Right now I'm mainly focused on controlling his hips, so my left tricep frames his hips between my arm and my left knee. I feel him still trying to turn away from me to turtle, so I actually extend my right leg all the way back to put even more weight on the left side of his body to keep him flat. I momentarily sit back to look for a transition to knee on belly, but he turns more away from me, and I sit back again into side control to keep him flat. I control the sleeve of his bottom arm to prevent the turtle, and he actually grabs my wrist and puts it between his legs to try to arm lock me, which kind of freaked me out for a second, but he uses this reaction to turtle. But I'm able to follow him up with my left hand glued to his waist and the grip over his shoulder. I immediately cover his hips with mine and then dig my right knee into the space under his ribs to get ready to take the back. I move my left foot between his feet in order to torque on his right knee as I fall back and keep a collar grip and sleeve grip, which kind of acts as an underhook but also prevents him from blocking my left hook as I dig my left hook in to score 4 points for back control. It's hard to see from either angle, but I initially set in a rear naked choke over his chin, and I'm squeezing hard, but it's not actually strangling him. He twists his head though to relieve some pressure on his jaw, which allows me to actually sink in the strangle arm for a true strangle with my right arm around his neck. For the finish, I actually twist my upper body towards my right, which is the same side as my choking arm, and it really closes off all the space. It looks a bit like this. Jiu-jitsu. I get the tap finally with 1:38 left in the match. This finish was a bit out of the ordinary for 2 reasons. 1, because I rarely get strangle finishes in matches, and 2, because rear naked chokes aren't as typical in the gi as they are in no gi. Usually people finish matches with a sliding collar strangle.
Foreshadowing.
To recap, here's all the moves that brought the score to 9-0 and an advantage for my opponent. First, my sweep from single leg X, which got me 2 points. Next, my opponent almost wrestles up from deep half and gets an advantage. I pass the half guard and stabilize side control to get 3 points, and then take the back for another 4 points, which brings the score up to 9-0. Finally, I'm able to sink in the rear naked choke for the finish. Next up is my quarterfinals match. If I win this match, I'll be guaranteed at least a 3rd place medal on the podium since I'll be in the semifinals. But that's not good enough for me. It's helpful to break up big tournaments into a set of small goals, so my first checkpoint was just to make it through 3 matches to the podium, and then my second checkpoint was to win gold. I'm now 1 match away from my first checkpoint and 3 matches away from winning a world championship, so stay tuned for breakdowns of my subsequent matches. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to stay up to date on future videos. See you in the next one.